Dawn shimmered over Evergrove, a realm where forests sang with ancient voices and mountains touched the flowing rivers of time. It was the day of the celestial convergence, a night rumored for centuries, when all things magical became possible or perilous. Within the quiet village of Willowshade, Adeline struggled with trembling fingers, the needle flashing through her tapestry as silver threads danced under her touch. The cloth pulsed with a subtle hum, every stitch whispered, though she did not understand how or why. She'd always felt ordinary. So why did the elders avoid her gaze? Why did her tapestries sometimes reflect dreams she hadn't yet dreamt? A sudden hush inside her cottage. Pages fluttered, though no breeze stirred. Adeline turned. On the table sat a tome, its leather softly gleaming, its worn corners whispering secrets. She'd found it in the attic on the last moonless night. Now its pages flipped by unseen hands, settling on a single line. The weaver must rise when the 5 lights align. A knock broke the silence. On the doorstep was Elias, the village bard. His cloak was tangled with forest burrs and sunlight gleamed off his ever-present lute. "You see the sky last night?" he whispered, eyes wide. "The stars, they painted the river gold. The elders are spooked, Adeline. Rumors say you're at the heart of it." She wanted to laugh, say it was nonsense, but the threads in her hand still tingled. "That's absurd, Elias. I'm just—" He cut her off. "You're not. Not anymore, ever since your fingers bled silver. Don't deny it." A gust of wind pushed the door wider. The tome's words seemed to burn brighter. Adeline hesitated, heart thundering. "If I am the so-called weaver, then what am I supposed to do?" Elias smiled, fear and hope warring in his eyes. "Someone needs to find the celestial garden. The fabric of the realm is fraying. Maybe you can stitch it whole, but we can't do it alone." A shadow flickered by the window. The village's reclusive alchemist, Sable, watched with piercing eyes, half hidden behind a shroud of fog. Adeline felt a tug from the tome and a certainty blooming inside her, a thread of destiny weaving her into something greater. "Let's start at the ancient well," she decided, voice steady. "If prophecy's calling, I'd rather answer it on my feet, together." As they stepped into the mist-laced forest, the first leaves of autumn swirling at their heels, Adeline's journey began. Not as the girl who hid behind her loom, but as the weaver who just might hold the fate of Evergrove in her precarious hands. Moss clung thick to the gnarled trees as Adeline, Elias, and reluctantly, Sable picked their way along the overgrown trail to the ancient well. The forest pressed in on all sides, alive with the electric tension of the recent celestial alignment. Adeline kept her fingers clasped around her tapestry needle, drawing comfort from its familiar weight. Elias broke the silence, humming a melody that darted between the trees like a mischievous spirit. "So what's the plan, Weaver? Want me to serenade any monsters we meet?" Adeline smiled despite her nerves. "If it comes to that, you're leading the way." Sable huffed, pulling his hood tighter. "We should be quiet, actually. The well attracts things that listen for careless steps." The path twisted suddenly. A shape, half wolf, half mist, rose from the shadows, its eyes like twin moons. Adeline's heart hammered. Sable reached into his satchel, pulling out a vial that shimmered blue. "Back, both of you." His voice shook, but he pitched the vial. It landed with a dull pop, and swirling silver mist burst forth, scattering the beast into motes of stardust. For a long while, none of them spoke. Finally, Elias cleared his throat. "Well, that's a new tune." They reached the well, its stones slick with moss. Ancient runes spiraled up from the rim. The sentient tome fluttered as Adeline laid it atop the stones. A voice, soft as the breeze but undeniably real, whispered from the pages, "Speak your longing. Cast your thread." Adeline drew her breath, eyes locked on her companion's. "I wish to mend what is broken. I wish to find the celestial garden." As she dropped a single silver thread into the depths, the ground trembled. Light, prismatic liquid rose from the well, arching over them. Visions flickered, a garden of impossible colors, ribbons of energy weaving through the sky, and a shadow that threatened to devour it all. The light snapped back, forming a path of glowing petals deep into the forest. "That's our way forward," Sable said, voice awed. Elias grinned, but worry flickered behind his eyes. "Stepping into the unknown. Sounds like a song worth singing." As they set off, Adeline felt the tapestry of fate tightening around her. She was terrified, but for the first time, she wasn't alone. Somewhere ahead lay the celestial garden and answers. if they could survive what guarded the path. The path of petals seemed to move under their feet, squirming away from the silvered trees and towards something pulsing just beyond sight. Shadows twisted at the edges of their vision, but none dared step onto the glowing petals wrapping gently through the undergrowth. Elias kept up a quiet, nervous chatter. Anyone else think it odd that a well can flash images into our minds? And did you see that shadow after the garden? Sable studied the air, brow furrowed. Magic obeys no one, Bard. In Evergrove, what you wish for is what you're warned about. Adeline trailed her fingers along the petals, feeling a pulse of warmth. Her legs trembled, but she pressed onward. The tome showed us the garden, but that shadow, I felt its hunger. We aren't the only ones seeking the gate to the celestial garden. A flock of jewel-bright birds burst from the boughs, startled by a low growl. Shapes darted through ferns, wolf-mist beasts following their trail, eyes smoldering. The three broke into a run, petals blooming rapidly before each step as if the forest wanted to keep them alive. Elias shouted, "Sable, any more of those fancy tricks?" Sable rummaged in his cloak, muttering, "Not enough, but the petals. Maybe they're drawn by your magic, Adeline." Adeline's mind scrambled for an anchor. She clutched her needle tightly, heart rattling. "It's worth a risk." She closed her eyes, imagining the tapestry from her dreams, petals swirling, weaving together. The air thickened with the scent of wild jasmine. Suddenly, the path pulsed brighter, petals rising and swirling like a living barrier. The beasts crashed against them, howling. Adeline opened her eyes. The petals stood strong, a shield spun from her will. Elias caught her with a hand. "That's it, Weaver. Keep going." With her focus growing steadier, Adeline moved them forward, the path shaping under her wishes. The beasts faded back as the enchanted petals swallowed them in a shimmering cocoon. At last, the forest parted, unveiling an ancient archway choked with vines. Symbols matching the tome's script glowed faintly. Adeline stepped closer. "This is it, the first key." Sable bent forward, his voice a whisper. "Are you ready to unseal it, Adeline?" She nodded, threading courage through shaking fingers. "Let's find out what fate truly means." Together they entered the archway, the world shifting behind them, and the mystery of the celestial garden looming even larger ahead. The moment Adeline, Elias, and Sable crossed beneath the ancient arch, a sudden hush fell over everything. Time itself seemed to slow. The light changed, filtering gold and green through an impossible canopy of trees whose trunks spiraled together into massive braids. The forest here breathed. Every leaf shivered in sync with Adeline's trembling breaths. Elias couldn't help but whisper, "Is this real? Or are we somewhere dreamed?" Sable pressed his palm to the arch's glowing runes, all hesitation gone. This is deep Evergrove, the place between the present and what could be. A path of woven roots unspooled before them, marked every so often by stones veined with glowing script. The sentient tome began to hum with warmth at Adeline's side, its pages shifting as if eager. Adeline flipped it open and read aloud, "To find the first key, let go of fear and trust the pattern unseen." "Unseen?" Elias scoffed. "The last time I trusted something I couldn't see, it turned out to be a goat in the bakery." Sable gave him an exasperated look. Not helpful. But Adeline stared deeper into the woods, heart pounding. If the tapestry that shielded them before was spun by courage and vision, maybe the next test demanded more than just her own will. She let herself feel the pulse of the roots beneath her boots, tried to breathe with the rhythm of the trees. "I think the roots," she murmured, kneeling. "They're guiding us. There's a pattern here." She let her magic sense flow, seeing with her mind a faint web connecting the stones and the trees. With every step along that vibrating web, the path shimmered stronger. Sable followed, muttering calculations to himself, while Elias composed a ballad on the spot to calm his nerves. Deeper in, the way forked into three. Riddles appeared, blooming in light across the soil. For the first, a question of heart. For the second, a trial of trust. For the third, a sacrifice must be part. Sable frowned. 3 paths, 3 of us. Adeline looked to her friends, fear and hope mixing like watercolors in her eyes. "We have to split up. Each of us takes a path." Elias swallowed but grinned. "If I'm not back by sunset, write a verse about my bravery." They grasped hands, then broke apart, each stepping onto their chosen trail. For Adeline, every root underfoot pulsed, promising both danger and growth. She clenched her needle, whispering to herself, Weave the unknown. The three ventured alone into the riddle's embrace, unaware that not only their quest, but their deepest selves would be tested before they could ever hope to piece together the realm's salvation. Adeline's path wound through towering thorns and shifting branches. The further she walked, the heavier her heart became. Her thoughts gnawed at her. What if she failed them? What if she wasn't the weaver the prophecy needed? A clearing blinked into view. At its center hovered a tapestry suspended in midair, threads streaming off it like sunlight. Shapes flickered within, herself, Elias, Sable, and shadowy hands unraveling it all. Words glowed along the border. Reveal your greatest fear and be freed to mend the world. Adeline's knees threatened to buckle. She stepped forward, breath shallow. I'm afraid of being ordinary, of never mattering, and most of all, of letting them down. The tapestry quaked, threads trembling. The shadows surged, whispering her doubts, unworthy, weak, replaceable. Tears blurred Adeline's vision. She clutched her needle, feeling the pulse of Evergrove beneath her feet, the hope of her friends. But I'm still here, she shouted. I choose to fight for them, even scared. That's what makes me strong. Light erupted, banishing the shadows. A single golden thread appeared, tying her wrist. The tapestry in the air wove itself whole, then vanished. Her chest felt lighter, a new strength flickering inside. She pressed on, the golden thread guiding her back. Meanwhile, Elias found himself facing a rickety bridge over a bottomless chasm. A pale illusion of Adeline beckoned from the other side. It's safe, Elias. Come trust me, the image called, but his gut twisted. What if it was false? He sang a bold verse to steady his nerves and stepped out in faith, the boards holding only when he truly believed. The image faded, replaced with an ethereal lyre, his first real magical prize as the bridge vanished behind him. Sable's trial led him through a chamber of mirrors. Each reflected a different moment of his mysterious past, triumphs, failures, and secrets he never voiced. The riddle's demand for sacrifice burned in his heart. He pressed a treasured pendant, his last token of a lost mentor, to the cold glass, letting it go. The mirrors dissolved. A silvery key appeared in his hand. As the three rejoined, weary but changed, Adeline's eyes shone brighter. We made it! Sable silently placed the silver key in her hand. Elias twanged his new lyre, letting out a half-laugh, half-sob. One trial down. How many left, do you think? Adeline squeezed the golden thread around her wrist, a small smile growing. Enough for us to grow, and enough to keep trying. Come on, let's see what the gate hides now. Behind them, the forest settled. Shadows retreated, and hope, threaded strong between three friends, blazed ever onward. Night crept down with an eerie beauty as Adeline, Elias, and Sable returned to the base of the braided archways, changed by their trials. The golden thread around Adeline's wrist shimmered with new power. The silver key pulsed within her palm, and Elias's enchanted lyre hummed softly, almost as if stroking the air in comfort. Sable inspected the gate, running nimble fingers over the runes. With the key, the gate should open, but only if all three gifts combine. We each have a part to play. Elias raised his lyre, strumming a chord that vibrated through the stones. Adeline rested the golden thread against one rune, and Sable pressed the key into a hidden lock amid the vine. Suddenly, the runes blazed with living light and their combined magic surged, unlocking something ancient in Evergrove's core. The archway cracked and swung open, revealing a passage ribboned with restless stars. As they stepped through, the sentient tome burst into song, pages unfurling to reveal a new prophecy. Heed now the darkness grows. Seek the heartlight within the spire of dawn, where all cycles end and begin anew. Only there may the gateway yield. Elias's smile faltered. A spire? There's nothing taller than the forest canopy. But the path ahead had shifted. The forest now sloped steeply upward, opening to distant peaks glowing faint violet in the falling dusk. Wind howled through marble pillars standing like sentinels before a gleaming tower, monolithic, impossibly old. Lightning streaked above, revealing a shadow circling the spire's highest point. We're here, Sable said, but so is whatever hunts us. Adeline felt the darkness swirl thicker, the same force from her vision. For a moment doubt flickered, but then the golden thread glowed, settling her resolve. We can't turn back. What we need is up there. They hurried through shifting mists to the base of the Spire of Dawn. A heavy door, carved with cosmic patterns, awaited them. When Elias pressed his hand to it, the lyre rang out, and the door creaked just enough to let them slip inside. Inside, marble floors reflected the starlight spilling down a spiral staircase. Murals along the walls told lost stories: triumph, betrayal, the rise of the celestial garden, and the coming of the dark woven. Sable lingered at one mural, face drawn. That shadow, it's not just a force. It was once a guardian, one like you, Adeline, a weaver who turned away, unraveling everything. Adeline's breath caught. Then I have to be different. We all do. Elias grinned, mischief returning as he strummed his lyre. Let's rewrite the end of that story, together. The three pressed onward, the spiral staircase swallowing them into starlit heights, every step closer to the Heartlight, and a confrontation that would define Evergrove's fate. As Adeline, Elias, and Sable climbed the dizzying spiral staircase within the Spire of Dawn, each step felt heavier than the last. The darkness above pressed closer, seeping through cracks in the marble, cold and watchful. Adeline tightened her grip on her needle and the golden thread, drawing courage from the pulse that now felt like her own heartbeat. Elias, usually quick with a song, fell silent, watching the shifting shadows, fingers fidgeting with his lyre. Sable moved in quiet determination, every cautious step echoing his resolve. They said little. They all felt something waiting at the spire's peak. They reached a landing choked with thorns woven from shadow, blocking further passage. Faces and whispers twisted in the darkness. The sentient tome shuddered on Adeline's hip, its voice echoing in her mind. With light, darkness yields. With unity, wounds mend. Adeline stepped forward, threading the golden thread through her needle. Her hands shook, but with careful, deliberate motions she began to sew the thread through the shadowed brambles. Silvery light spilled from the seam, pushing the darkness away. Elias watched, then breathed in and played a hopeful tune, the notes lifting the golden magic higher. Sable uncorked a flask at his belt, sprinkling droplets that shimmered and multiplied the growing light. Together, the trio's efforts pierced the shroud. The brambles shriveled and split, revealing the Heartlight, a crystal suspended in midair, blazing with color and hope. Yet it pulsed in alarm, for coiled around it was a wraith-like shape, woven entirely from darkness. The shadow lashed, shrieking. Adeline felt it clawing at her memories, feeding off her fear and failures. She staggered, but Sable anchored her with a steady grip. You're not alone. None of us are. Elias's music swelled, driving back the noise. He called out, voice trembling but firm, You're not the only song in this world. Step back and let us heal what you tried to break. Summoning every ounce of faith, Adeline dove forward, threading the last golden stitch between the Heartlight and the shadow. Her tapestry's power surged, wrapping the wraith in warmth, not hatred. The wraith hissed, its form flickering. For an instant, Adeline glimpsed a lost weaver within, eyes pleading, desperate. Do not fail, the phantom gasped. Do what I could not. With a final surge of light and determination, Adeline wove the shadow away. The Heartlight steadied, flaring with promise. Breathless, changed, the trio gathered as the Heartlight cast a path toward the spire's summit. But their greatest challenge, unlocking the celestial garden, still loomed, and now they knew. The darkness was not only ancient and powerful, but heartbreakingly human. With the shadow vanquished and the Heartlight blazing a new path, Adeline, Elias, and Sable pressed on. The spire narrowed, the air ripening with new magic. Each step toward the summit felt electrified, hope and dread twining in the air like vines. At the very top, the passage opened into a circular chamber. Above, a halo of swirling starlight marked the ceiling, and the floor glimmered with swirling runes. In the center, atop a pedestal, a final tapestry hovered, the gateway to the celestial garden, unfinished and frayed at its edges. Adeline's breath caught. Around the tapestry drifted motes of memory and regret. As she stepped forward, images flickered. The village streets she missed, her mother's laughter, faces of friends left behind for this quest. Yet, the most powerful image was of herself surrounded by Elias and Sable, hands joined, each lending strength to each other. The sentient tome opened to a blank page, as if inviting her to write the next part of the legend. Elias touched her shoulder, voice quiet but steady. You have to finish what was left unmade, Addie, but not with your power alone. That's never what stories like these want. Sable pulled a vial from his pouch and, with a rare smile, handed it to Adeline. For courage and for trust in others. Adeline placed the tapestry on the floor, Her hands began to move with renewed purpose, Elias's lyre echoing encouragement, and Sable offering wisdom at each knot and weave. The power was unlike anything before, the golden thread braiding itself with strands from Elias's songs and Sable's potions. As they worked, the gateway tapestry glowed, threads pulling in not just their magic, but their memories, hopes, fears, and every triumph. The chamber shook, runes flashing brighter and brighter. The unfinished edge resisted, darkness creeping up from the floor, threatening to unravel all. Elias's voice cracked under the strain, but he sang louder, pouring his own vulnerability, the fear of losing his friends, into the weave. Sable joined, weaving a slice of his sorrow and a hope for forgiveness. Adeline closed her eyes and poured in the last thread, her acceptance. That she was afraid, that she had failed and learned, but she still stood and still tried, for their sake and hers. With a resounding chime, the tapestry sealed. The gateway shimmered, solidifying as a living doorway. The swirling starlight above flowed down, painting the archway in radiant hues. A cold wind swept the spire. From the runes, a new shadow wrenched itself free, the dark-woven restored and stronger for having learned from its past mistake. Its eyes locked onto Adeline. They glinted with mournful resolve, more human and more dangerous than ever. The true test lay just beyond the gateway. The fate of Evergrove, and the hope of mending what darkness had once broken, now depended on the courage they'd found and the unity they'd forged. Thunder rumbled as Adeline, Elias, and Sable stood before the gateway's swirling arch. The dark-woven, now fully formed, blocked the only passage, cloaked in shifting shadows stitched with pain and lost hope. The heartlight's warmth dimmed. Cold seeped into Adeline's bones. The closer they got to saving Evergrove, the more impossible their task felt. Elias met Adeline's gaze, his smile little more than a shadow. "It's not over, Weaver. How do we fight something that's got nothing left to lose?" Sable drew his cloak tighter, a strange glint of empathy in his eyes. "Maybe we don't destroy him. Maybe we show him what he's missing." The Darkwoven's voice boomed, the sound heartbreak and longing twisted together. "You would risk everything and everyone for what? Hope? Love? Unity? These are the dreams that failed me." Adeline stepped forward, voice trembling but clear. "But they're also what brought us to this threshold. I'm not special because I create alone. I'm special because of what I build with them. My friends, my fears, my whole self. That's what you forgot when you let your pain come first." For a moment, the darkness around the wraith flickered, old self-doubt battling with something gentler. Elias, emboldened, played the melody he'd written on the journey, a song of longing for home and forgiveness. Magic shimmered between them and the dark-woven, as if bridging an ancient gap. The gateway loomed, its tapestry swirling brighter as Sable added a potion, causing the colors to dance. An invitation, an offering. "Let us help you heal," Sable urged, "not by undoing your past, but by gifting you a place in the future." The dark-woven's form contorted, the shadowy seams tearing as old wounds reopened. Lightning crashed outside, and for a harrowing moment, it seemed it would shatter the gateway, or cast them all into darkness. Instead, the wraith howled and dropped to its knees. "All I ever wanted was to protect the weave," it moaned. "Please, let me see the garden once before it's lost again." Adeline hesitated only a heartbeat before reaching out, her golden thread joining hands with her friends, one human chain anchored in hope. "Come then, help us finish what you started, and let Evergrove heal." The gateway gleamed, responding to unity, love, and forgiveness. The archway pulsed open, showing the celestial garden blooming with impossible color. All four, Adeline, Elias, Sable, and even the Darkwoven, stepped through the threshold together. The stakes had never been higher. The final test, the mending of worlds and the last challenge of the prophecy, awaited them in the heart of the garden, where no one's past could be left behind, and only true acceptance could restore balance to Evergrove. The celestial garden unfurled before them, a world within a world, where time spun in spirals and every flower burned with silent, trembling light. The very air sang with a music Adeline felt in her blood, every heartbeat laced with the pull of old magic. Petals drifted like fragments of memory, laughter, loss, hope, and forgiveness all woven into the shimmering tapestry beneath their feet. The gateway sealed behind them, leaving Adeline, Elias, Sable, and the Darkwoven alone at the heart of eternity. The garden's center, An ancient loom of dazzling crystal threads stood at the eye of it all, its web ragged and stained by the spreading decay that had almost unraveled the world. Adeline stepped forward, golden thread glowing bright around her wrist. The garden called to her. Every leaf seemed to whisper her name. But she didn't move alone. Elias stood at her side, lyre in hand, voice steady as he whispered, "Whatever comes next, we do it together." Sable produced vials, their contents gleaming with hope and invention. Even the dark-woven waited, shadowy hands trembling, eyes reflecting the battered wonder of a forgotten guardian. "Adeline, the loom is yours," the sentient tome murmured, its pages fluttering open. "But this last weaving must bind all stories, pain and joy, light and shadow. Only balance restores the weave." With shaky hands, Adeline threaded her needle with golden light. She wove in the laughter of her friends, Elias's music, Sable's wisdom, and most importantly, the morning darkness of the dark-woven. Every memory, every lesson, flashed through the weave, pulling tight the frayed edges between dreams and heartbreak. As she worked, the loom responded. Where she wove pain with compassion, blight faded and blossoms second bloomed. Where she stitched fear with courage, dying roots pulsed green again. She invited the dark-woven to add a thread, shadow but not harm, and to her surprise, it shaped the tapestry with longing and protective strength. Elias sang a ballad of home and second chances, the music inscribing joy and sorrow alike into the warp and weft. Sable poured a final potion, the elixir crystallizing the weave, sealing it with a promise of renewal through learning and forgiveness. A shudder rippled through the garden, the last fraying edges healed. Light and shadow spun in harmony, the world shivering as balance flowed outward to every corner of Evergrove. The ancient prophecy was fulfilled, not by might, but by trust, unity, and the courage to accept every part of themselves, even the broken pieces. The garden breathed anew. The stars aligned one last time, bathing each of them in soft, forgiving light. The dark-woven, tears shimmering in its spectral eyes, bowed its head. "Thank you for believing even wounds can heal." Adeline turned, her heart wide open and changed. She understood finally that weaving was not just about creating, but about mending, forgiving, and letting her spirit be known. Elias grinned, strumming triumph. Sable, for the first time, let laughter bubble free. And Adeline, no longer afraid, no longer alone, whispered a vow to Evergrove and to the friends who'd made her whole. Whatever world we wake in, we face it and heal it together. The celestial garden glowed with a new dawn. And so, the Luminary Chronicles began. Not with endings, but with hope eternal, alive and bright in every heart.